Welcome to TV3. Today my guest is a freelance writer from Arlington who I met indirectly first reading her columns at the Boston Parents magazine. Carol Band, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
And so we exchanged some emails and I remember that nice comments that we have the same child. And I was so related to her writing. And one day I just received an information that her book come out, a household word. And I was invited to her reading in a Port Square bookstore where was a lot of parents and colleagues of hers and children.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, we enjoy to hear her reading. But first, I want to ask, since we didn't have a conversation, like how actually, Carol, you start to write?
Well, I was a journalism major in school with all the intent of being someone who would go out and cover fires and things like that. But kids happened, and I left the workforce and was a stay-at-home mom for several years, and then I got a part-time job at the Boston Parents paper where I was doing their entertainment listings, and I would always sort of put a little comments into all the events of the day, and my boss there said, "Gee, Carol, why don't you write a column? Try writing a humor column. We could use one in the paper, and you seem like you might be good at it." So I did, and then the paper was bought and sold to a syndicate, and they bought my column as well, and
But how many years?
It was 10 years ago, 11 years ago.
11,
so,
okay.
Yep. So my kids have grown up.
Yeah, so I think that's when I start to read, because that my son was born. He's he's 14 right now.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's how I start to look at the paper. And again, I probably just start like you. First, I was looking what the places I should take my child, and maybe some concerts or some other activities. And I ended up reading your columns, and since then I was counting myself as your friend. So,
well, you're not alone. I meet so many people that say, "Gee, I feel like I know you," because
right.
they do know me. They've read about me.
Yeah. So, and tell us about this book, and of course, I will ask you to read some stories from the book.
Well, the book is a compilation of 10 years worth of columns, almost all of the columns, but not quite, and. I had them all there on my computer, and it just seemed like a natural thing to do, to put them all together.
Okay, so let's start with some of the stories. You choose the one you can start first.
All right. Well, maybe I'll start with this one. It's called Running on Kid Time, which also was just published in Chicken Soup for the Soul, Power Mom's book, which just came out for Mother's Day. I have to take off my glasses to read, unlike most people. This one's called Running on Kid Time, and it's about how kids and parents don't always jive. I recently celebrated my birthday, and my oldest son, sweet boy, gave me a t-shirt that says, "In dog years, I'm dead." Nice. Ha! You're over 300 years old, my youngest figured with a rare burst of mathematical insight. Then he eyed the dog. That means Chester is 21. Wahoo! Go, Chetty, you can buy beer. Nice. Although I seem to have a grasp on how canine time is calculated, after all, multiplying by 7, while not as easy as multiplying by 5, is still fairly straightforward, I haven't been able to comprehend what makes my kids tick. The struggle for us to synchronize is a daily effort. Maybe that's because my children aren't living on Eastern Standard, Central, Mountain, or Pacific time. They're on kid time. If you set your clock to kid time, an hour of TV isn't nearly enough. 9 o'clock is way too early for bed, and Saturday morning, while your parents are still sleeping, is the perfect time to try to cut your own bangs. On the kid calendar, Christmas is always too far away, summer vacation lasts forever, and your birthday is a national holiday. If you ask my kids, they'll check their watches and tell you that recess is too short, math class is too long, and all teachers are really, really old, even older than me. In kid time, sitting through an hour-long church service is equivalent to being stranded on a rock in the middle of the ocean for a month. You're hungry. You're starving. Mom, do you have any Tic Tacs? When will they pass out those little pieces of bread? I'm hungry. I'm thirsty. Will there be donuts at coffee hour? I'm getting weaker. I'm fading away. I'm slipping under the pews. Ah! Likewise, a 12-year-old boy who's supposed to practice the piano for 30 minutes will race through his piece and declare, "I'm done," after a minute and a half. That's because a half an hour of practicing the piano in kid time is like an adult spending 3 hours at a Weird Al Yankovic concert. It's interminable. Maybe we should try to be more understanding. As parents, perhaps we should learn to expect a different kind of punctuality from our kids. For instance, when an adult says, "Do your homework right now," a child will say, "Okay," but she won't move. That's because in adult time, right now, means sometime soon, like in the next few minutes. But in kid time, right now, means not until your mother has asked you again and again and again, and then not until she finally stomps into the den, snaps off the television, and says, "I said right now." I try to accommodate the members of my own household who are operating on kid time, but it's not easy. "Can you take me to Sean's house?" my son asked at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. "Soon," I said. For me, soon means later, after I've had a cup of coffee, after I've changed out of my pajamas, and after Sean's parents are conscious. For my son Lewis, who apparently has no snooze button on his kid clock, soon means right now. Right now. "Are you ready yet? Can we go now? How about now?" My oldest son also has a clock that runs on its own sweet time. "Take out the garbage," I say. "I am," he replies, even though I can see that he's sitting barefoot at the kitchen table consuming vast quantities of expensive, not from concentrate orange juice. Again, the fact that I am able to see him is not because he's able to bend the time-space continuum, it's because he's on kid time, where "I am" means he will, eventually, maybe. Kid time starts the second you become a parent, and apparently it just keeps on ticking. Anyone who's ever walked the floor with a colicky newborn, or sent a teenage driver out with the family car, or waited in an emergency room with a toddler, or read Green Eggs and Ham over and over and over, knows that time with kids can make minutes seem like an eternity and make years pass in a moment, even dog years.
Actually, I heard these comments that we calculate wrong. It's nothing about like a human age. It's one dog, 7 years for humans.
Yeah. Wrong?
Yeah, I think
I'll
so.
have to rewrite that column then.
And I like that question when you ask the audience in a Border Square reading, who remember your kid's name? And I remember only Louis.
Oh, my kid's names.
Yeah.
But that was good. You can't.
Yeah.
That's because I write about him the most.
Yes, yes. And, well, he was the main character of most of the stories.
Yes, much to his chagrin.
Yeah. And so I know you have oldest son and a daughter.
Yes.
And I know your husband is working.
Thank goodness he's employed and lets me get away with doing all this frivolous stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's right now let our viewers to hear this wonderful story where the Louis is a main character. It's a
The Crab?
yes.
Aha. This is they're all true stories, although my kids would
Oh,
say
I
they're
know.
a pack of lies, as I say on the cover. This is called The Living Dead, and it's I write a lot of stories about pets, but this is one of my favorites. This past summer, we visited one of those touristy shops at the beach, and I broke down and bought my son a hermit crab. For Louis, part of the appeal was that the crab's shell was painted with the logo of the Boston Red Sox, his favorite baseball team. For me, the hermit crab seemed like a good alternative to more complex life forms like geckos, guinea pigs, and iguanas. "His name is Bruce," my son said lovingly as the crab clamped onto his finger and drew blood. "I think he likes me." On the ride home, Louis sat in the back seat with a cardboard container on his lap and cooed to Bruce through the air holes. "Why are you talking to that crab, you moron?" Louis's teenage sister said. "Crabs can't hear you, and even if they could, they don't have brains. They're like lobsters. I think we should cook them." "Don't listen to her, Brucey," my son hissed into the box. "She's just jealous." At home, we found an old 10-gallon aquarium, one that's haunted by ghosts of deceased goldfish and long-dead gerbils, and transferred Bruce to his permanent digs. "Bruce needs a more interesting habitat," my son said as he proceeded to arrange Lego guys and plastic dinosaurs in the tank. The crab seemed unimpressed. At the store, he had seemed lively, but here, amid a T-Rex and sword-wielding pirates, he seemed a little lethargic. "Maybe he's just tired from the long drive," I suggested. We went to the local pet shop to stock up on hermit crab food, even though I suspected that Bruce wouldn't live to consume much of the fishy powder that Louis piled into his tiny seashell dish. We also bought a sea sponge so Bruce wouldn't become dehydrated, a bag of neon orange pebbles to mimic his natural habitat, and we blew $17 on a plaster castle that might have added a little more quality to the short life of the now dead goldfish. This was one lucky crab. Bruce is going to be so happy, my son beamed as he festooned the tank with our new purchases. He also added a Spider-Man action figure, a handful of marbles, and several Hot Wheels cars. The environment in the tank was so rich, so stimulating, that it was hard to even locate the crab. And when I did, he looked suspiciously dead. I think you might want to take a look at Bruce, I said in a gentle tone. What do you mean? Lewis said. Well, he's not really moving, I said. Oh, that's because he's sleeping, my son quipped. Who was I to question his expertise? Maybe Bruce was just sleeping. So I took a pair of tongs from the kitchen and moved Bruce into a more realistic pose near the sponge. Maybe some water would perk him up. See, Mom, I told you he was asleep, my son said at bedtime as he diligently dumped more food into the seashell dish. Bruce is drinking water now. Did you see him walk there? I asked. No, but he's drinking and he's fine, my son assured me. The next morning, the crab's thirst was apparently still not quenched, and while Lewis brushed his teeth, I used the tongs to reposition Bruce at the door of the castle. He looked good there. In fact, he stayed in that position for several days, until Lewis needed to retrieve the Spider-Man action figure. Hey, Bruce is guarding the castle, Lewis exclaimed when he notices the crab's new post. I pondered Bruce's next move and wondered how long I should carry on the charade. I've thought about replacing Bruce with a live crab, but our pet store only sells fish. And even if I could locate a suitable double, I'm not sure I could lure a new crustacean into Bruce's Red Sox shell, or that I could successfully evict the current, albeit deceased occupant. Turns out, a dead hermit crab is a pretty good pet. He doesn't eat anything, his cage never needs cleaning, and the faint stench of rotting shellfish emitting from Lewis's room not only adds a waterfront ambiance to the whole house, it's given our geriatric cat a renewed sense of purpose. The only maintenance required is periodically moving the shell to simulate lifelike activity. The dead crab's antics have kept my son amused now for over a month. Sometimes Bruce is atop the sponge drinking. Other days he's positioned near his food dish, and sometimes he's wedged inside the Hot Wheels convertible, ready to race around the tank. I like Bruce, my son said yesterday, but you know, when he dies, I'm going to make a necklace out of his shell. And I can't think of a more fitting memorial.
So how many days it was going on?
Long time.
A month?
Finally, Lou lost interest in the, months. It was months.
Well, it's amazing.
Now we have a gecko, but that's another column.
Right. So for people who would like to laugh and increase their health, I would recommend, again, A Household Word by Carol Band. And Carol, you can tell us where they can purchase the book if they will be interested.
Yeah, it's available locally at the Book Rack in Arlington. It's at Porter Square Books, and it's available online at Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com, or through my website, which is carolband.com.
So, and now we have 5 minutes left. So, do we have a short story?
I can read one more, I think.
Okay, yes.
One more. Yeah.
Yeah. And so before we finished, I'm very thankful that you come and spend time with us. And of course, my viewers will see my other guests soon too. So now the story.
Well, this one's about braces. My son Lewis recently got braces.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it's called Brace Yourself.
Yes.
Before we got married, my husband and I got a blood test to check for genetic glitches like Tay-Sachs disease and the Rh factor. We were screened for various STDs and for AIDS. The church encouraged marriage preparation classes to ensure that we were spiritually compatible. But no one ever suggested that prior to saying I do, we consult with an orthodontist. I wish they had, because it turns out that despite being well matched in most areas, combining Harris's narrow jaw with my horsey teeth has had serious consequences.